I consider my vocation to be truly very ordinary. I mean, there was no radical conversion, or I grew up in a practicing Catholic home where the practice of the faith was a given. So, in the example of my parents, they were very generous. And I also would have to say my grandmother. She has been, through many years, very powerful influence in my family. Both my grandparents, but especially my grandmother, growing up, she would ensure that when we visited her, we would go to daily Mass with her. Well, one of the priests, besides my family, there's been a number of priests that have been instrumental in guiding me. But also here in Vancouver, we are very fortunate to have wonderful priests who were genuinely interested in promoting vocations. My pastor at that time was Bishop Monroe and Bishop Gagnon. Both of them had a huge influence in me. I do remember how happy Bishop Gagnon was. I was attracted to his joy, that there was a genuine joy about what he was doing, and that was certainly very attractive. Well, going to seminary doesn't mean that one is going to become a priest. Sometimes people come in with the mentality that going to seminary automatically means priest. And I don't like necessarily the use of percentages, but I mean, actually, probably half of the people that enter seminary don't get ordained, maybe even more. Because the seminary, first of all, is not a priest-making machine, but it's a place of discernment. When one is ready to discern if God indeed is calling, well, the seminary is there to help. Because if we could discern outside, but there is the noise, not necessarily the music noise, but all the distractions that we have don't allow us to hear the voice of God, who really only speaks to us in silent prayer. So in the seminary one goes, and one has to be first formed as a man, then as a Christian, and then as a priest. It's a gradual formation, and that's why seminary can take somewhere from 6 to 8 years. It's a long formation, but it's a necessary formation because it's a serious call, and one wants to be sure, and one may feel sure, but it's for the Church to corroborate that. As a vocation, it's the way in which I will, God willing, become a saint, or I don't mean a canonized saint, but someone who is in the company of God in heaven. But I'm at the service of God and His Church, and as such, my duty is really to show others the love of God, the love of Christ. In a sense, to exemplify what the Eucharist is, in that God humbles Himself to become the small host at the altar, gives everything so that He can be in communion, in a relationship with God. And the priest is there to mediate that, to be able to facilitate that. It's a great example of God's love that doesn't abandon us, that stays with us. He promised to be with us till the end of time. And what a great example, what a best example we have in the priesthood. So the duty of the priest is really to show others the love of God. And how we do this? Well, the sacraments. The sacraments is the ministry of the priest. That's our, if you will, our battlefield. That's where we are doing battle for souls. In the seminary, they really stress this to us, that the Church subsists as liturgy in the liturgy. Father Placidus loves that quote from Pope Benedict. And the Church, there wouldn't be Church without liturgy. So it's very important that a priest not only has a great knowledge of what the liturgy is and how to live the liturgy, but also a great love of the liturgy, and liturgy done reverently and well. A love for the traditions of the Church in terms of liturgy, in that we're not afraid of chant, for instance, or that we know that that's a great patrimony. It's not something relegated to concert halls, but it's something for today. The liturgy is really where everybody comes to meet God. So it's really the duty of the priest to do a good job, to do what the Church asks, and to do it faithfully, but above all, to do it prayerfully. The liturgy is first and foremost prayer. And we need to be able to, as the priest is there to preside the liturgy and to lead people in that great prayer, especially the Mass, but the sacraments and the liturgy, the hours. The priest needs to be praying in the liturgy to be able to lead others people to pray and have a real encounter with God, an encounter that develops into a genuine and lasting relationship.